Kenya today has been tasked by the world with convening around the issue of trust. The Trust Summit is being held in Kenya under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And the world is looking to Kenya to tell the world, what are we learning about how we rebuild trust in communities, in societies, between citizenry, with government? How do we rebuild trust? So Kenya has a responsibility to think deeply about where she is going for ourselves, but also for Africa. Does that matter to us? I hope it does.
Hey guys, welcome to the channel. This is your Jomba. On 12th August 2026, President Ruto hosted an event called the National Dialogue on Vision 2030 and Beyond. And there's something that happened at this event that made me make this episode today. And there are two things. The first one is President Ruto dusted off Julie Gichuru from the shelf wherever she was hiding, or she has been hiding for the past 4 years since Ruto became president. And the second one is the war on propaganda by President Ruto and against President Ruto, and how he is losing this war. Number one, Julie Gichuru. For those of you who know who Julie Gichuru is, and for those who do not know, nilikuwa nataka tu niwakumbushe. Julie Gichuru was one of the biggest media personality ever in the Republic of Kenya. And Julie Gichuru, I think, I am not sure, but I think she started her career in KTN. And then pahali ambapo she blew up in immense proportion was at Citizen TV. And Julie Gichuru has been used by this government as a very important propaganda tool. Not this government, but previous governments. For example, the Moi Kibaki administration, and then the Uhuru Kenyatta and President Ruto administration. Julie Gichuru has been used, or was being used, as one of the biggest disseminators of propaganda against the people of the Republic of Kenya for very many years until her exit from Citizen TV. If you remember, kuna series ambayo Julie Gichuru used to do every Sunday called Who Owns Kenya? And for those who do not understand propaganda and what propaganda is, Who Owns Kenya was used to sanitize the people who have looted billions from the Republic of Kenya and from the people of the Republic of Kenya. Who Owns Kenya? At that time, mimi mwenyewe sikuwa naelewa what government propaganda is. And I remember I used to tune in every Sunday to her show to watch her episodes of Who Owns Kenya, because for me, I was just fascinated by the amount of wealth that these people have amassed, and that fascination, I never knew at that time ya kwamba hiyo ilikuwa ni propaganda ya kufanya ile kitu ambayo inaitwa laundering thieves and looters of our national resources. Most of the people, or most of the Kenyans who were featured in that Who Owns Kenya series, walikuwa ni watu ambao were mostly associated with previous governments, from the Jomo Kenyatta administration, the Moi administration, and then later on the Mwai Kibaki administration. And the only way these people made their money was through their either work inside the Kenyan government, or their work with the Kenyan government, which put them in the position to amass these insane amounts of wealth. Hakuna, yani there were very few episodes ambazo zilikuwa ati these people are industrialists who have built their wealth from scratch, from nothing. For example, kama kina Bill Gates or akina Warren Buffett or these American industrial magnates. Lakini wetu wa hapa kwetu kwa Julie Gichuru na who owns Kenya, most of them were associated with the looting of our resources. So Julie Gichuru alitumika sana kufanya hii propaganda. And if you guys remember, especially the 2013 elections, the 2017 elections, Julie Gichuru ilikuwa ikifika time ya elections, she was being used to spread this message in quotes ya preach peace in this country as this government, especially ile ya Uhuru Kenyatta na Ruto, was oppressing Kenyans, na yeye anatumiwa hapo kusanitize hiyo serikali. It is very subtle. You have to be very keen to notice this kind of propaganda games or propaganda warfare that is executed by people like Julie Gichuru, and it takes time for you to understand and to recognize what is exactly going on. So katika hii Beyond Vision 2030 dialogue that President Ruto hosted at KICC, we were all surprised. Mimi personally, I was surprised to see Julie Gichuru ametolewa from whatever shelf she was in. President Ruto dusted her up, akasema sasa huyu ataenda mbele ya watu, and he is going to redeploy Julie Gichuru in his propaganda warfare ya hii maneno ya sijui Beyond Vision 2030 to use her to regain the trust of the people. And that is why hapo in that opening segment, you can watch Julie Gichuru talk about trust, that the government of Kenya is being trusted by the international community to sijui host whatever events huku and how they benefit Kenyans. Julie Gichuru, my name is Mwabili Mwagodi. My viewers and I want to remind you of one thing. You cannot mention the word trust and the name President Ruto in the same sentence. President Ruto has abused the trust that Kenyans gave to him in August 2022 when they voted to elect him President of the Republic of Kenya. President Ruto promised us, number one, ya kwamba he is going to completely finish dynasty. By dynasty, he meant the likes of the Jomo Kenyatta family, the likes of the Moi family, the likes of the Odinga family, the people who have plundered this country at the expense of Kenyans, and how they have abused power and offices of trust to amass wealth at the expense of Kenyans getting basic needs and services from governments. Immediately he took office, the first thing he did was to go back to the table with these dynasties and start dining with them at the expense of Kenyans again. Mimi personally, I am proof of this dynasty lie, because immediately after President Ruto took office, hiyo KRA yenye alikuwa amesema imekuwa weaponized na hawa dynasty families to protect their businesses, to help them evade and kuna tax evasion and tax avoidance, to evade and avoid tax. For example, President Ruto, instead of going after dynasty, he started going after the small man, watu kama mimi na wewe, mama mboga, boda boda, small medium enterprises. Immediately after President Ruto took office from January 2023, KRA weaponized something called pre-assessment audits, whereby KRA would go out to a small medium enterprise, na hizi sio biashara za dynasties, hizi zilikuwa biashara za watu wadogo wa chini kama mimi na wewe, and they will slap you with a tax assessment, inaitwa an assessment. KRA wataangalia biashara yako yaseme sasa wewe tunakudai 1 million for example. Okay, now you have to defend yourself against this assessment. You waste months fighting with KRA and negotiating and auditing and submitting documentation, and finally you will agree on a figure, sawa, which you must pay. That is President Ruto. President Ruto promised Kenyans better healthcare. Okay? The first thing he did immediately after he got into office was amend laws or change healthcare laws. Akavunja NHIF, akacreate kitu inaitwa SHA, and we know what happened with SHA. 104 billion was looted even before SHA ianze kufanya kazi, and the people who benefited from this deal ni nani? Ni President Ruto himself. SHA does not work. It only works for President Ruto. It collects money upfront. Ukiregister, wanachukua 65%, first of all, of your registration. The premium 65% ishaibiwa na President Ruto. The balance 35% ndio inatumika kufanya nini? To take care of our healthcare. And even that 35%, after umetibiwa, there is another collection agency, sawa, that now goes ahead to charge 2% on claims by hospital. So anakula mbele, anakula nyuma. That is President Ruto for you. Julie Gichuru, you cannot sit there and talk to us about trust. There is nothing trustworthy about President Ruto. Let us talk about security. President Ruto took office, and the first thing he said is that our security institutions, our internal security organs are going to be independent. They are no longer going to be working for the big man. What happened? Akaingia yeye, he formed his own abduction squads, he formed his own torture squads, and he started going after not politicians this time, young Kenyans, vijana wa 18 years, 19 years, 20 years, 21 years, 22 years. I know I am repeating myself. If you have watched me here several times, you know I have already spoken about this a million times. But President Ruto has weaponized the police, the National Police Service, the NIS, the DCI, even more than Jomo Kenyatta, President Mwai Kibaki, and Uhuru Kenyatta combined to go after his opponents. And his opponents are not politicians. It is Kenyans, young Kenyans like you and me, who makosa yetu, crime yetu ni kusema Ruto must go, ama kusema one term. He has abused the trust of the people. Right now, internal security, we are seeing how goons have been weaponized. Every time there's a little maandamano, President Ruto anatoa polisi, anawaassign goons wanakuwa armed na crude weapons kama mipini ya mijembe. Watoke nini? Wapige wananchi ambao wanasema nini? One term na Ruto must go. Where is the trust, Julie Gichuru? Let us talk about kitu kama, for example, agriculture. Trust. Julie Gichuru, you want to talk about trust? Immediately President Ruto took office, tulipewa msaada wa mbolea, fertilizer kutoka Ukraine. Hiyo fertilizer huko ilipofika Kenya, wakaitanganya na mavi ya kondoo kuongeza volume. Okay? And the first people who became victims are his own Kalenjins, the large scale farmers of Kalenjin. Hao watu wa kwao walikuwa wanapewa fertilizer fake fertilizer. Ati sijui it is 2,500 but unauzia watu fake fertilizer. Julie Gichuru, you want to talk about trust? There is nothing trustworthy about President Ruto. President Ruto is a con man. That is number one. Number two, he is a thief of our national resources. And immediately after being a thief, he also loots our country's assets. He passed a law in parliament. This law specifically has given him express authority as the executive to dispose of our national assets to himself. Kenya Pipeline Company imeenda, Safaricom, shares za serikali zimeenda, na ni nani ananunua? Ni President Ruto himself, yeye na wezi wenzake. So Julie Gichuru, ukikaa hapo utuambie kuhusu trust, jameni. Kwani hivi, you think Julie Gichuru, you are talking to the Kenyans of 2007? Do you think you're talking to the Kenyans of 2013 or to the Kenyans of 2017? Times have changed. And President Ruto, jameni, you need to sit down with yourself, take a break, and start realizing that these people that you think are going to help you cannot. Wamepitwa na wakati. Julie Gichuru amepitwa na wakati. Yeah. That propaganda that you guys were using Julie Gichuru 10 years ago, 15 years ago, is not going to fly with this new generation. We have a new generation of Kenyans who have smartphones. They have information in their hands. They can see you do all these evil schemes. They can see you plot all these evil schemes against Kenyans. So if you think that Julie Gichuru is going to help you, believe it or not, huyo Julie Gichuru anakuzamisha. It's as simple as that. The second issue that I wanted to address in today's episode is that President Ruto gave a speech huko KICC, and in that speech, he spoke about Katiba. Okay? I just want you to take a minute to watch this segment, and then I come back, we discuss in the final segment of this episode.
And therefore, it is important that we engage in this exercise in the context of a new constitution. A new constitution that does not request us to consult the people. No.
So what is funny about this clip is that it was shortened exactly how you see it. And when President Ruto was talking about the constitution and how it has made things hard because of public participation, watu waka edit out hiyo part yenye alikuwa anasema mandatory. Public participation has been made mandatory in this constitution. President Ruto was not talking about him attempting or wanting to change the constitution of Kenya 2010. No, he was just giving context as to Vision 2030 was implemented before the new constitution 2010, whereby public participation was not a must in decision making on behalf of Kenyans and for Kenyans in projects that affect their daily lives. Lakini sasa, Ruto amegovern hii nchi na propaganda since 2022. And now, that same propaganda he has weaponized against the people have weaponized against him. So, when you go kwa mitandao, Facebook and Twitter, there is a huge uproar where the people are saying President Ruto is trying to change the constitution to make sure that public participation is not a must. And now the conversation imetoka from Vision 2030. Now serikali ya Ruto is fighting against propaganda that he wants to change the constitution. There is a saying which says, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. Our president, unfortunately, has run this country on propaganda, and finally, the same propaganda that he has weaponized against the people is now being used against him. It is extremely funny to see how they are backpedaling and they are trying to share the full clip of the full context of what President Ruto was trying to say yesterday, but believe it or not, it is not sticking. And that is how it is going to be between now, August 2026, and 10th August 2027 when we go to the polls. President Ruto is fighting against a public that is, number one, informed. Number two, a public that understands propaganda, and it is going to use propaganda against him. And these are people who are not being paid in State House. These are people who have smartphones in their hands and they have time on their hands. Whatever it is that President Ruto thinks he can do to kind of dump Kenyans. Hiyo meli ilipitwa na wakati kitambo sana, yani ilishatoka bandarini, sasa hivi iko maji makuu huko. Inaelekea wapi? Inaelekea sijui China, sijui wapi huko. This is your Jomba Mwabili Mogodi. Thank you very much for your support as usual, guys. Continue the conversation in the comments. Tell my viewers of Mwabili Mogodi TV how you feel about Vision 2030 and beyond. Your Vision sijui 2060, sijui Vision 2100. Alafu ndio tuweze kupambana na huyu jambazi sugu anaitwa President William Kipchirchir Samoei Arap Ruto. This is your Jomba Mwabili Mogodi. Asanteni sana.